I've been using YouTube since about 2006, basically since the platform first started. And back then, there were no ads whatsoever. And I watched as MCNs came in to act as the middleman to place ads on creators' channels. Finally, the MCNs went away and you could work with YouTube directly. And at some point, companies started paying attention to YouTube and started wanting to do things like sponsorships and product placement, getting the embedded ads that we see today. Now, different creators have their own opinions on embedded ads, some to the point where they just won't work with any companies at all. In my case, if you've seen some of my previous videos, you'll know that I currently have an affiliate deal with Linode. But that definitely doesn't mean that Linode is the only company that's contacted me. Since I've had about 5k or so subs, I've been getting an increasing number of these emails asking, hey, you want to shield my product? Hey, here's something you can talk about. Hey, here's some money to shield this. And I've considered it, but I have very strict guidelines on how I actually want to work with a company, what I will actually promote, and how I want to make sure it doesn't ruin the content for you guys. So what I want to do today is explain what those guidelines are, so if you see me working with a new company, you can actually understand why I decided to go with them. But before we get into that, I have to explain what the difference between an affiliate deal is and a sponsored video. So right now, my partnership with Linode is just an affiliate deal. So that means that when I do those ad reads in my videos, I don't actually get paid for those. I only get paid when you go to the link and then you purchase the product. In this case, it's a VPS. Even if I dedicate an entire video to working with Linode, let's say I do a video on setting up a game server, for example, I'm still only getting paid if you go to that link. Now, as for a sponsored video, this is where you get paid specifically for making the video. Now, Linus Tech Tips does a bunch of these. Now, when you do a sponsored video, you may also have an affiliate link because the company wants you to go and purchase a product, but the main payment there is just for the video. The difference you'll see with a sponsored video is a lot of the time the company has a lot of creative control over what you say and do in that video, whereas with an affiliate link, you're generally free to do whatever you want. But regardless of which I do, I still have the rules that I go with. The first one is I want the product to be an interesting product, and not just interesting to me, but interesting to you guys as well. If I cannot see myself using the product, I have no interest in advertising it. Let's say, for example, a company managing a mobile crypto wallet comes to me. Now, I know a lot of you guys do like crypto, and I like crypto myself, but I don't think you should be using a mobile wallet because that just seems like a very easy way to lose tens of thousands of dollars because you forgot to back up your keys. And if the wallet doesn't give you access to your keys, well, I have no interest in touching it whatsoever. But then let's say one of the popular internet shaving companies comes to me instead. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, haha, Brodie doesn't need to shave, he has a beard, but I still need to shave. I know that even though that's not directly related to tech, because my audience is, I think, 97 or 98% male, there's still going to be a lot of people that product actually interests, and because that's something I would be happy to use myself, I'd be more than happy to work with them. Now, there was one company in a similar vein that did hit me up. They weren't a shaving company, but they were a coffee company, and while I don't drink a ton of coffee myself, I'm sure that a lot of you guys probably drink more than is a healthy amount. And I was happy to work with these guys. They seemed kind of cool. There was one problem though, and that was they didn't ship to Australia, they only shipped within the US. So I physically wasn't able to try this product, and that just made me feel kind of weird. I wouldn't be happy shilling something unless I could at least test it out and see if I liked it. That doesn't mean that I have to be using the product prior to receiving the ad email, but it does mean that once I do hear about it, it has to be something that I would want to use. The next thing is that I refuse to be dishonest about the product and completely misrepresent what it's actually capable of. VPN companies, for the most part, are really, really bad for this, where they'll hand you talking points that say things like, oh, your ISP can't snoop on you, and if you use this in public, it'll protect your data and save you from hackers. This is a blatant misrepresentation of what a VPN can actually do. What a VPN is good for is changing your IP address so you can watch Netflix in the US when you're in Australia, not to be this golden bullet to save you on the internet. But VPNs lead us into another rule, and that is worrying about the company's reputation. So if you go and shill a VPN saying how much it's going to protect you online and save you from all of those evil hackers, what you're doing is you're tying your reputation to the reputation of the company. Now, when this VPN company has a data leak, because it's not a matter of if they will, if they are storing any data, they will have a data leak. Now that problem is on your shoulders because you've been shilling this product. And while some people might be happy to accept that risk, that seems like way too much hassle to deal with. This doesn't mean that I will never work with a VPN company, but I will be very clear about my terms with them, and I will not be saying things like, it'll protect you online. That's absolute nonsense. Now, I don't think there's any product categories that I just flat out wouldn't advertise, but it has to be something that actually makes sense for the channel, and this is judged on a case-by-case basis. So I've had companies offer me game keys in exchange for a paid review. I've had sketchy Chinese key resellers come to me, and while these generally wouldn't make sense for a Linux channel, I think there are some exceptions. So let's say, I don't know, I'm really bad at the game, but like Mindustry came to me, for example, and wanted me to do something with them. A paid review is a bit sketchy, but I don't know, a paid stream or something like that, that is something that I would at least consider. And the key resellers hit on another problem, and that is that I'd much rather not work with someone doing something questionably legal. Now, whether key reselling actually is illegal or not is dependent on the country you're actually in, but it seems like too much hassle to deal with. Another thing that I avoid is anything that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. So right now, I'm working with Linode, but it's still fairly common for Linux channels to receive emails from other VPS hosts. I'm not going to give out their names, but I would never go and advertise two directly competing services. If I'm saying Linode is great and then some other service is great, it's kind of difficult to take my opinion seriously when I'm telling you these completely different things. And I don't do reviews on this channel, I just do showcases. I've sort of explained the difference in the past before, but unlike channels like, say, Linus Tech Tips, where they're still happy to do a paid showcase, in my case, I'm not a big fan of doing that. Yes, I'll do a paid video on, say, like, using something, like if Linode wanted to do something like setting up VPS security or hosting your own VPN on Linode and they would pay me for that video, I would be happy to do that. But there was a company that came to me and wanted me to do a paid showcase for an AI autocomplete, and it felt a bit weird, even if I'm being honest about the product. Because it's a paid video, I could understand why people wouldn't believe me. Another big thing is the ad position. So it's pretty obvious, but the later in the video the ad is, the less the ad is actually worth because less people are watching later into the video. With the exception of the start, where if you have an ad in the first 30 seconds, you're very likely going to make people just click off the video. So after that point is when you'll start seeing some form of ad. Now, in my case, I'm really not a fan of putting an ad right at the start of the video. I feel like it ruins the flow of the content. The earliest I would go is about halfway through, so in the case of a 10-minute video, around the 5-minute mark, but I would have to have somewhere to actually segue into that made it so the content continued to flow nicely. Because I have full control over the Linode ads, I like to put those at the end, because if you've watched the video all the way to the end, I don't think you're really in any position to complain that there's an ad right there. You can just click off the video, you've already seen all the content you want to see. One exception to having the ad at the start of the video is having something like a banner there saying, hey, this video is sponsored by so-and-so, check in the description down below for the link. That, I think, doesn't disrupt the flow of the content because you can just ignore that and then just continue watching the video. Now, I have one exception to most of these rules, and that is that if an absolute meme came to me, like, say, Raid Shadow Legends, for example, there is no way that I could go and turn down that ad deal because that would just be hilarious to say that I've done. And I don't know how I would do it, but it just sounds funny to do. Would that deal be basically just for the money? Pretty much, but it would be funny nonetheless. So I think that's pretty much everything for me. Let me know your thoughts down below. And before I go, I would like to thank my supporters. So a special thank you to Joachim Donald, Michael, Andre, Nathan, David, Will, Brennan, Chicabento, Jamie, Joseph, Josh, Mitchell, Peter D, Stephen Theroux, Tony Tushar, and all my $2 supporters. If you'd like to go support, work the links down below to all of the stuff there. I've got my podcast, Tech Over Tea, available basically anywhere, and then this channel is available on Odyssey if you like to watch on a platform that isn't YouTube. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.